He's Dave Roberts, the Dodgers manager, and got the Brewers game one coming up on Friday night, National League Championship Series. Congratulations so far. How are you, Skip?
Dan, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. We were looking back on your career, and I didn't realize that you were a pretty good quarterback coming out of high school. How good were you?
I was actually, before I had my ACL reconstruction, spring practice my sophomore year, I was a better football player than I was a baseball player. Jamel Holloway, old Oklahoma
Yeah.
Barry Switzer option quarterback, that was my guy. So that's who I kind of emulated.
Biggest offer came from who?
Air Force Academy.
And how close were you to going?
Fisher to Barry.
Oh, that was great, coach.
I actually did my senior speech in June. I had my appointment, and so I was all set to go. And then come July, I pivoted and decided I didn't want to play football or go to the Air Force Academy. So then my search to play college baseball began in July.
But you walked on at UCLA, didn't you?
I did, because I got accepted to UC Berkeley. So in the UC system, since I got accepted to the UC system, it allowed me to get accepted into UCLA. And at that point in time, when you're looking at July and August and the school starts in September, obviously the scholarships are already already set in stone. And so Gary Adams allowed me to be a recruited walk-on, got me into school, and I made the club.
Was D. Dallas at Air Force Academy when you were going there?
He was number 6, yes, sir.
You were not going to beat out D. Dallas.
I was not going to beat him out, but I was in the same conversation though, Dan.
I like it.
You.
I like it. I like it. All right. We were just talking about starting pitching. We were watching the ALCS last night. The Yankees couldn't get their starters past 3 innings. I'm curious what your philosophy is of what you hope to get out of your starters, no matter if it's Kershaw or Hill, whoever it might be. What do you expect to get? Hope to get?
So, you know what? Here's the thing: is that I think it's hard to put one specific number, but obviously, I think that because every pen is different, and where you're talking about have they been used and all this stuff. But I think obviously, 6 is probably the number that people talk about these days, and especially when you're talking about postseason baseball. But I will say this, though, is that the thing that's challenging for a manager now, and you hear so much, there's so much pressure on a guy to go to the pen early, and a lot of it depends on, for me, is how he's throwing and who you got coming in. So every manager's got to make that decision. So, but ideally, to your question, 6 innings seems reasonable, but obviously I think that our guys have thrown the ball pretty well, and if you look at Houston, the way their guys have thrown the ball well, you want to get as many as you can out of your starter.
Can you be talked out of taking somebody out of the game, a pitcher?
Can I and have I? Yes. It does.
Okay.
It doesn't happen very often. It's got to be the right guy, and there's certain parts of trying to build the equity with the player in a certain spot where something in your gut, when you go out to the mound and says, there's something in the voice, the look in the eye that says, I believe in this guy to get through this inning, or I'm just not convinced, but yes, I can.
What do you make of Christian Yelich? Who's he remind you of?
Sean Green.
Oh.
Sean Green, in the sense that they kind of have that same physique, same look, the left-handedness, the outfielder. Sean didn't hit for power early, then the power came later. Very athletic guys, kind of similar for me.
Yeah, he did it when you need somebody to be an MVP. That's why. I mean, there were guys who were good the entire season. I just thought Yelich, when the Brewers needed him, came up big, and I would be surprised if he's not the MVP. Who do you think is the MVP?
No, I agree. I think Christian is the MVP. There's so many good players. Obviously, when you're talking about that conversation, but I think that with what he did for that club, and you look where they were at the All-Star break, where he was really struggling. After the All-Star break, he really took off and really catapulted that ball club to catch the Cubs. And For me, if I had a vote, that's who I'd give it to.
Dodger manager Dave Roberts joining us, Continental Tire Coach's Corner. Clayton Kershaw said that he had nothing to prove, and he went out and proved whether he had nothing to prove or not. He was brilliant in Game 2. But did you think, like deep down, he still had to prove a little bit on this big stage?
I don't think that in that one particular game, that's a moment where we decided to start Hyun-Jin Ryu because of the rest factor, where there was a lot made of that. I think the question of the postseason is a bigger question, and that's a question Clayton can answer. But I think in that particular situation, I don't think that – I do believe that he has nothing to prove, but I do think that there's a pride, there's an ego component that comes into it that wants to pitch well, and that's what he did.
But also, and I know that the media makes a big deal out of this, and I don't know how much is coincidence. I don't know how much is like that's just some pitchers are wired differently when it comes to the postseason, and you were there with Curt Schilling. Like, there's no better big game pitcher that we've seen in the last 20 years than Schilling. There was just something about that moment. But as a manager, how do you detect that if somebody has that or they're missing that?
Well, I you know what, Dan, I look, Clayton's 20 starts in the postseason or 21 starts or whatever it might be. So I can't really go back and look at every start. But I will say, I will echo what you said about Curt Schilling. For me, there's been no bigger big game pitcher that I've seen. The ability to prepare and execute the way that Schill did. And Clayton, I think a part of it is the execution, and I also think that just being able to use his entire pitch mix and flip the script just a little bit. And I think that when teams prepare in a postseason, at times it calls for that, because the preparation is so kind of fine-tuned.
How many ticket requests have you received?
You know what? So in this NLCS, I'm going to Milwaukee. We're flying out tomorrow afternoon. I've got one ticket request, and that's from my son who's traveling with me. Beautiful thing.
Well, wait. You only had one ticket. Now that you've mentioned this, now you're going to have some new friends who are going to say, "Hey, I hear you got some tickets."
Beautiful thing is that the IRS is caught up to sports and they're taxing it, so that's my excuse now. Hey, man, we have to pay for these tickets.
Did you watch the Red Sox Yankees?
I did. That's a good club over there. Both of those guys are good friends of mine as far as the managers, and I got some coaches, obviously, that I'm close with over there on both sides. And the Red Sox, that's a very offensive team, and Porcello threw the ball well, and it ended up being a lot closer than everyone expected. But, I think, for me, the best team won.
We were talking about pitching strategy or managerial strategy with your pitchers. I also look at certain teams are built for the regular season. I thought the Yankees were built for the regular season. They were fun to watch. But when you need to manufacture that run, when you need to get a guy on, get a guy over, do small things, I didn't think the Yankees were wired that way. And I know that you guys rely on the long ball as well. 8 home runs in the series against the Braves. 13 of the 19 runs were driven in via the home run. Are you worried that you're too self-reliant on the home run?
Well, I think that you're making a good point. And that's the thing that you look at the Red Sox and you look at the Astros, how they can kind of beat you in a lot of different ways offensively. But they can also pitch. But I think for us, we can pitch. And that's your question about the offense. We do walk a lot. We homer. We do walk a lot. And I think that, a lot of it, though, Dan, is that when you can get guys on base and create stress and traffic, the one hit that you're looking for can put up a crooked number. But I think that, we might not hit and run as well as other clubs or single, but we do get guys on base.
Are today's baseball players better than guys from 20 years ago? I know better condition, better athletes. Are they better baseball players than 20 years ago?
So you're talking about, let's look at it in two ways. The position player side, no. I think they're stronger, bigger, stronger, faster, but I think in a vacuum, are they better baseball players? No. And I think that the players 20 years ago had more clubs in their bag. They could do a lot more things. On a baseball field, they were more in tune with, they did a lot of their own scouting, by reading swings and studying pitchers and keeping their own books on pitchers, where now there's so much information and guys are just relying on that and looking at a card and staying in a spot and even not adjusting during an at-bat or making an adjustment in the at-bat as far as in the box. So, but the pitching side, you're talking about, there's a lot of talent. When you're talking 5, 6 guys that throw 95 plus, that was never the case 20 years ago. So, but as far as a position player, certainly for me.
But also, I look back, and Randy Johnson could throw it as hard as anybody. He had to learn to become a pitcher. Today's kids, I don't think, are becoming pitchers. I think they're throwers. Now, you do have the exceptions, and they do stand out because they're true pitchers. I think that's what's lost on this new generation of pitchers is to understand how to be a pitcher, how to have the batter get himself out. Maddox used to throw hard. Nolan Ryan had to become, from a thrower to a pitcher. All of these guys, it feels like, and I think that's what's missing today. These guys just go, give me the ball. I'm going to throw it as hard as I can until I need Tommy John surgery.
Well, I think that's a little unfair, Dan, because I think that, just because a lot of times where guys that have velocity, they're just kind of put in the bucket of throwers. And there's a lot of guys that we could talk about that have velocity that are pitchers. And we saw one the other night come in the 8th inning in Chris Sale. So, and Verlander. There's a lot of guys that Scherzer, it goes on and on, that guys with velocity. So I think a little bit, Dan, I don't think that that's completely fair.
All right. Well, I've been never known to be fair. But, I'm the grumpy old...
No, I hear you. No, you're not the grumpy old man. And I think your point is very fair. I do. But a lot of times people make that decision when a guy throws 90 that he's crafty and he's pitch ability and he can pitch, and it kind of takes away from the guys that do throw hard. But no, you're definitely not salty. I love you.
Could you steal a base right now if you had to? You could not.
Absolutely not.
Okay, just in case that that they needed.
I could steal, but I wouldn't be safe.
It's still awkward when I bring this up, but playoff share, I don't know if it was voted on. I think you were checking with Kershaw and Turner the last time. Is it just assumed that I get a playoff share?
Hey, if they don't vote you on, if JT doesn't vote you on, you're going to tap into my share. All right?
Okay. How much is that? Where do we stand right now? Okay, here's the deal. I'm coming out to Los Angeles next month, mid-November.
All right.
You can hold the parade till then, or we can get together and have dinner, or both.
I'm going to do everything I can to hold the parade off.
Okay.
And dinner is a done deal.
Okay, absolutely. All right. Have fun in Milwaukee, and always great to catch up with you, Dave. Thanks for joining us.
All right, Dan, all the best.
That's Dave Roberts.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV or download the Dan Patrick Show app.